Manu, 2020 would have been a very tough year for you and Xiaomi in particular because Xiaomi is Chinese. We know about the border incursions, what happened thereafter. How did you battle with that, and are you still battling this perception?
First of all, thank you so much, Nayantara, for inviting me. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm looking forward to our interaction. Last 1 year was definitely tough, extremely tough for us. And the biggest thing which impacted us was the entire COVID lockdown and our inability to scale up our supply because of this. Regarding the cross-border thing, I wouldn't really comment on it. I know about it. But for a company like ours, which has been truly building phones for India, in India, by Indians, I don't think that was anything of a significant concern. If you look at our entire leadership team, here is made of Indians. The phones, we have a product team, R&D team in India. We are manufacturing all our phones, all our TVs in India. And not just this, I'm happy to share starting January 2021, significant number of components that we're using in our phones are also locally manufactured or assembled or sourced from India. So yes, last year was tough, but the biggest thing that we faced was COVID and lockdown. Because once COVID hit, once lockdown was there, thousands of people who work in our factories, they went back to their villages and their towns. And it was very tough for us to bring them back and bring them back in a safe environment, giving them residential facility, dorms, ensuring that we maintain social distancing. And how do we get them back and supply and ensure that the supply ramps up to meet the demand? So it was definitely very interesting.
So Manu, can you tell us, are you back to pre-COVID levels? And I'm talking not about sales right now, I'm first talking about manufacturing.
Yes. So if you look at till March, and if you look at just the external numbers such as IDC, they say we used to do more than 10 million phones every single quarter. And when I say phones, I mean smartphones only because we don't sell feature phones. So as per IDC report, we used to sell more than 10 million smartphones every single quarter, which is about 30% of Indian smartphone market. And this came down crashing from 10 million a quarter to zero in Q2, April, May, June. Because April and mid-May was lockdown. And even when the lockdown was over, it was very tough for us to bring back the team, the manpower back to factories. And then Q3 was a little bit better, but still significantly smaller. And in Q3, which is July, August, September, we were forced to also import devices. And then Q4 was actually very good. And we managed to scale up for the Diwali season. And today, as we speak, we are actually ahead of the pre-COVID world. Now, one of the biggest things that we did during this 9-10 month period, we saw that the demand was so much higher, and demand had actually gone up during this lockdown, during COVID period, because everybody wanted to buy a smartphone. Smartphone turned out to be the most essential commodity after food and medicines. Everybody wanted to buy a smartphone for work from home and study from home. So I'm happy to share that during this COVID, during this pandemic, we have added 2 new partners, DBG and BYD, for our local manufacturing. So earlier, our phone manufacturing was being done by 2 partners, Foxconn in Sri City, Andhra Pradesh, and in Tamil Nadu. And Flex was a partner who was manufacturing phones for us in Tamil Nadu. And now we're adding 2 new factories, BYD in Tamil Nadu and DBG in Haryana. And they have also started manufacturing phones for us. The first factory which has gone live is DBG in Haryana. And with this, our capacity is further increasing by 10%. And the BYD factory is supposed to go live anytime soon. And hopefully by Q2, which is April, May, June, our capacity should further increase. So we are already at the same level or ahead of what we were in the pre-COVID, lockdown period. And we are planning to further increase the capacity in India.
You want to further increase capacity in India, that is Xiaomi's plans. Can you share with us what kind of capacity additions, what kind of segments? Is this primarily for, to sell in India? Are you exporting from India? Do you plan to do that?
Okay. So our capacity pre-COVID was we could manufacture 3 phones every single second. And now with this 20% increase, we can actually manufacture more than 3.5 phones every single second. So every time you just snap a finger, we can produce 3.5 phones across all these factories of Foxconn, Flex, DBG, and BYD. And this will further go up once the BYD factory is full up and running. we started exporting small quantities last year. Our plan was to start exporting significant quantities from India in the year 2020, and we started exporting small quantities in neighboring countries such as Bangladesh and Nepal. But because of COVID, because of lockdown, it was very tough because we couldn't even supply to the local domestic market. So it was tough for us to increase our exports. And right now, the demand for local domestic market is so high that our first and the most important priority is to meet the demands of the local market. And once we do this, we will ensure that we also start ramping up our export. This may happen sometime this year or maybe next year, we don't know. But our first and most important priority is to start expanding our local domestic supply for the local demand. And this is not only on phones, but even on many other segments such as TVs. We are opening a new factory for TVs. We used to manufacture with a partner called as Dixon, and we are now opening a new factory on TVs with a partner Radiant. And now 100% of our TVs are locally manufactured in India.
So it's not assembled, it is manufactured. I want to get that connection in. I'm also going to ask you one question, which is that you're now manufacturing 3.5 phones every second, higher from 3 phones a second during COVID-19. Manu, you're saying it's 100% manufactured in India. Is it 100% assembled in India or manufactured? If I look typically, how much of the sourcing is from India? How much of it comes from China?
Understood. So, and thanks for asking this question. This is a very important and relevant question. If you remember 5 years ago when we started our Make in India journey. So by the way, Xiaomi in India, or MI in India is only a 6-year-old company, right? We started in 2014 and globally the company is 10-year-old. We are listed in Hong Kong and in the India company is only about 6-year-old. Now, 5 years ago when we started our Make in India journey, a lot of people said, why do you want to make phones in India? Because there are no component suppliers. And phone manufacturing is basically assembly, or TV manufacturing is assembly, where you buy components such as camera module, display, battery, and other pieces, and you put this together into a phone or a TV. So when we started phone manufacturing or phone assembly, it was a tough decision because people said there are no component suppliers. So why do you want to do phone? And the reason why there were no component suppliers was because there were no phone manufacturers. So it was a chicken and egg problem. So the first thing that we did, we said, we are going to, along with our partner Foxconn, we are going to set up a local manufacturing unit. Now, once we have this local manufacturing unit, there will be an incentive for people to come and start manufacturing components for us. And once that happens, even the raw material of these component suppliers will also start coming to India. If you look at the supply chain today, the smartphone supply chain, it is all across the world. There are components coming from China. There are components or raw material coming from Taiwan. There's component raw material coming from Korea. There are raw material components coming from Japan, from US, and also from Europe. So different parts of the world are supplying components today. Now let's look at our smartphone. 5 years ago when we started, we were only assembling phones, manufacturing phones in India. 2 years ago, we took the next big step when we started manufacturing or assembling PCBAs, which is the biggest component on which the chipset is mounted, memory, storage, everything is mounted, and which almost contributes to 50% of the value of the phone. We started assembling or manufacturing that in India. The next big piece was the subboard. So if you open the phone, on the top there's a motherboard, and on the bottom there's a subboard in which the charging port and other connections go. We started assembling or manufacturing those subboards in India. Then in the middle of COVID, we started manufacturing 3 other key parts. One is battery, second is back panel, and now happy to share in starting January 2021, we are also starting to manufacture camera modules in India. So now we have motherboard, subboard, camera module, back panels, batteries, and all these things being manufactured. And not just this, even boxes, chargers, cables that go with the phone are all locally manufactured in the country. Now, if you combine all of these things together, they contribute to about 75% of the value of the phone. So 75% of the value of the phone is either locally manufactured or locally assembled or locally sourced in India from India. Now, the question can be, what about the raw material for many of these things? They might still be coming either from India or from abroad, but now that these components are being locally manufactured, 75% of the value, there will be an incentive for even the raw material suppliers to start coming and setting up manufacturing units. Like if you're making battery packs, there's a battery cell. Somebody is manufacturing battery cell in the world. right? So that battery cell manufacturer, there will be an incentive for that battery cell manufacturer to start coming and manufacturing those battery cells here in the country. So it's a continuous process. At least I am super proud of the fact what the team has been able to pull through during this COVID. And to the best of my knowledge, there is nobody else who is sourcing so many local components here in the country as much we are doing. And this is something that we are proud of, but we don't want to stop here. And we want to take it even further from 75% to a higher number over the next few years.